5.5% yearly tuition fee hikes at 8 local universities for 3 consecutive years. Russian leader Vladimir Putin now on a visit to Vietnam. And Premier Li Qiang wraps up his 3-day visit to Malaysia. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Tuition fees at 8 government-funded universities in the city will be raised by an average 5.5% annually for 3 consecutive school years. The fee hike will be in place starting in the 2025-26 academic year. The administration said the increases are not going to be imposed because of the government's budget deficits over these few years. The yearly tuition fee hikes will be in place at 8 University Grants Committee-funded universities in Hong Kong for 3 consecutive years, from the 2025-26 to the 2027-28 academic years. The average increase will be 5.5% per annum. Currently, the annual tuition fee for undergraduate students is set at $42,100. In year 25 to 26, students have to pay $2,400 more. After 3 years, the tuition fees will be raised to $49,500. The government said the tuition fees for local undergraduate students have stayed the same for 27 years, and since the last tuition fees adjustment, the composite consumer price index has increased by 40% cumulatively. So the adjustment is very modest, the government said, adding that it is striving to strike a balance between the government's fiscal discipline and the provision of affordable higher education for students. With a fee increase, there will be adjustments in the offer of the means and non-means tested financial assistance, including loans and grants to eligible full-time students of UGC-funded programs. Student support group Hok Yao Club is worried that the fee rises will affect students from the low to middle-income families. That's because the sandwich class is not eligible to grants but only student loans, which come with interest rates. Since the early 1990s, the government set the fee level at 18% of the total tuition cost, known as the target cost recovery rate. After the fee hike, the cost recovery rate for year 2027 to 28 is estimated to improve slightly to 13.4%. From 12.5% in 2024-25. Chief Secretary for Administration Eric Chan said the government is not raising the fees because of the budget deficit. He added there are no plans to increase the fees further after 3 years. The government announced today that starting from August 25th, senior citizens aged 60 or above must have a Joyu Card to enjoy the $2 concessionary fare while using public transport. Mimosa Ngai reports.
Elderly people using the Green Octopus card can currently take public transport for $2 per trip under the government's public transport fare concession scheme. It won't be the same starting from August 25th. Residents aged 60 or above must have a Joyu Card to enjoy the benefit. Existing anonymous Elder Octopus and ordinary personalized Octopus cards will no longer be applicable. To help the elderly who still have not switched to the Joyu Card, 8 temporary Joyu Card application service centers will be open between next Monday and August 31st. Individuals can also apply for a Joyu Card via post or the Octopus app. This elderly is ahead of the game. I have already got my Joyu Card. The application process was easy, he said. My daughter helped me with the application, this man said. The Labour and Welfare Bureau said authorities had handled more than 1.3 million Joyu Card applications since 2022. However, about 110,000 eligible residents are still using the Green Elder Octopus card. Under-Secretary for Labour and Welfare, Ho Kai-ming, said by applying for a Joyu Card, senior citizens will be able to enjoy the $2 concessionary fare under a real name registration system. He said this is a more suitable way to use government funding. News 9, TVB News.
Secretary for Health Lo Chung-mau today said a recent medical incident at Queen Elizabeth Hospital is not a rare case. A male patient is in a critical condition after a nasogastric tube was misplaced in his left bronchus. The 61-year-old male patient needed a nasogastric tube for feeding. Queen Elizabeth Hospital said a nurse gave the man a new tube on Sunday. On that evening, another nurse adjusted the position of the tube before arranging for him to do an X-ray. The man's condition deteriorated on Tuesday. Doctors then found the nasogastric tube was misplaced in his bronchus. Secretary for Health Lo Chung-mau said he is saddened by the incident. He said this type of incident has happened before. Lo said the hospital has established a task force to look into the matter, adding authorities will handle it promptly if any human factors are involved. Meanwhile, a power outage occurred at Kwonghwa Hospital at around 7 p.m. on Wednesday. This led to 25 surgeries having to be rescheduled. Lo said the hospital authority will investigate the cause of the incident. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a series of deals with his Vietnamese counterpart To Lam in Hanoi today, on the first day of his state visit. Putin arrived in Vietnam after visiting Pyongyang, where he signed a defense treaty with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The two-nation Asian trip is seen as Putin's way of showing the world that Russia can counter U.S.-led attempts to isolate the country after its 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Nasvi Karim with more.
Fresh from signing a military treaty with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in Vietnam for talks with the country's leaders. He was given a full state welcome, met at Hanoi International Airport by Deputy Prime Minister Chan Hong-ha. Later on, a warm embrace with President To Lam at the Presidential Palace. After an inspection of the honor guard, the ceremonial handshake, before getting down to business with the first round of talks. The pomp and pageantry is exactly what Putin wants. Russia is weighed down by US-led economic sanctions after its 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Putin himself is under an arrest warrant issued in 2023 by the International Criminal Court in The Hague. His trip to Vietnam and the one to Pyongyang are seen as attempts to break the international isolation, analysts say. In an opinion piece in Nan Dan, the Vietnamese Communist Party's newspaper, Putin praised Hanoi's pragmatic stance on the Ukraine war, adopting a neutral stance as part of its bamboo diplomacy. During talks with Lam, Putin expressed a desire to strengthen the two countries' comprehensive strategic partnership. Lam congratulated Putin on his recent re-election and Russia's achievements under his leadership. The Russian leader was later to meet Nguyen Phu Trong, the Communist Party's general secretary, who is the most powerful politician in Vietnam. He is also expected to visit the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum.
For Putin, the trip is to signal that Russia is not isolated in Asia despite the Ukraine war. For Vietnam, Russia remains an important partner, not just for long historical ties, but also because Russia is the biggest supplier of military equipment. Moreover, Russian oil exploration technologies help maintain Vietnam's sovereignty claims over the contested South China Sea.
At a joint conference with Lam, Putin said Russia and Vietnam continue to adhere to the principles of international law and non-interference in other states. Afterwards, Putin met Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh. In 2023, Vietnam welcomed visits by Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Joe Biden. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
Premier Li Qiang has concluded his three-day visit to Malaysia. Before departing, he said China is ready to accelerate the building of a China-Malaysia community with a shared future. Danny Zhou has the story.
China and Malaysia are taking their bilateral relationship to the next level as Premier Li Qiang wrapped up his first official visit to the Southeast Asian nation. At a business community luncheon in Kuala Lumpur today, Li pointed out that joint efforts across various sectors will lead to another golden era of relations. Calling China a true friend, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim emphasized it is his country's strategic interests to forge friendship and cooperation with Beijing. The two leaders renewed a 5-year economic program and inked a rash of deals that would deepen collaboration in priority sectors such as education, energy, agriculture, automotive, utility services, digital economy, and green development. China has been Malaysia's largest trading partner for 15 consecutive years. Malaysia, which only ships processed and frozen durians to China, will soon be allowed to export fresh fruits to the multi-billion-dollar Chinese market. Anwar reaffirmed Malaysia's commitment to the One China policy. Both sides agreed that China and relevant ASEAN countries should tackle disputes in the South China Sea independently and properly by peaceful means. They hope to launch bilateral dialogue on the management of maritime issues as soon as possible. The two leaders hailed the economic boost brought about by burgeoning flagship projects under the Belt and Road Initiative, such as two countries' twin parks and the East Coast Rail Link, or ECRL. Li and Anwar jointly launched the groundbreaking ceremony for the ECRL's Gombak Integrated Terminal Station, which will connect the West Coast's economic heartland to eastern rural states. Li said China is willing to work with Malaysia to make the ECRL a path to prosperity and happiness, and study the prospect of linking it to other railway projects in Laos and Thailand, while expanding the BRI across Southeast Asia. Malaysia is also preparing to join the BRICS group of emerging countries as they seek to rely less on the US dollar in the multipolar world. Experts said that BRICS will offer an additional platform to give Malaysia a bigger voice as a middle power. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
The Philippine military chief has demanded that China return several rifles and equipment seized by the Chinese Coast Guard near a disputed South China Sea shore. General Romeo Bronner Jr. also demanded Beijing pay for what he said was the damage caused during the incident. China blamed the Philippines for the confrontation, saying the Filipino personnel trespassed into the shore in defiance of its warnings. Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian said that was the direct cause of the incident. He added the Chinese Coast Guard took professional law enforcement measures with restraint aimed at stopping the illegal supply mission by the Philippine vessels. Lin stressed no direct measures were taken against the Philippine personnel. Welcome back. The head of Lebanon-based group Hezbollah has warned that nowhere in Israel will be safe if a full-fledged war breaks out between the two sides. This after the Israeli military said on Tuesday it had approved operational plans for an offensive against Hezbollah. Meanwhile, the UN Human Rights Office has published a fresh assessment on 6 Israeli Defense Forces attacks with heavy bombs in Gaza, saying they raise concerns regarding loss of war. Tracy Furness has more.
The Israeli Defense Forces, or IDF, said 2 Hezbollah rocket launches damaged several vehicles in northern Israel. This comes as Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah warned Israel against escalating the conflict in the region. Hezbollah has new weapons and intelligence capabilities that could help it target more critical positions deeper into Israel in case of a regional war, he said. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi held a situation assessment meeting on Wednesday. Gallant said, "We are completing the land and air readiness, strengthening the intelligence systems and preparing for any possibility." This as 9 Palestinians were killed in southern Gaza as an Israeli airstrike hit a group of citizens who were waiting for aid trucks. Meanwhile, the UN Human Rights Office, or OHCHR, published an assessment of 6 IDF attacks with heavy bombs in Gaza last year, causing high civilian fatality rates.
The report details 6 emblematic attacks involving the suspected use of GBU-31s, or 2,000-pound bombs, GBU-32, 1,000-pound bombs, and GBU-39s, 250-pound bombs. From the 9th of October to the 2nd of December 2023 on residential buildings, a school, refugee camps, and a market.
The report said that given how densely populated the areas targeted were, the use of an explosive weapon with such wide area effects was likely a prohibited, indiscriminate attack. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
In Britain, Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party is heading for a record defeat, according to 3 opinion polls. The July 4th election is forecast to be a comfortable victory for Keir Starmer's Labour Party after 14 years of Tory rule. Polling by YouGov showed Labour would win 425 parliamentary seats in Britain's 650-strong House of Commons, the most in its history. Zavanta predicted 516 seats for Labour, and Maureen Common gave it 406. YouGov had the Conservatives on 108 and the Liberal Democrats on 67, while Savanta predicted the Conservatives would take 53 parliamentary seats and the Liberal Democrats 50. More in Common forecast 155 and 49 seats, respectively. Savanta and YouGov predicted the Conservatives could be left with the lowest number of seats in its near 200-year history contesting elections. London's famed Kew Gardens witnessed a rare event this week as an endangered flower was in bloom. A time-lapse video was released by Kew Gardens on Wednesday, showing the flower beginning to bloom. Luckily, onlookers witnessed the endangered Titan arum flower bloom on video and not in real time, as the flower is known for its foul smell. Not surprisingly, it is also called the corpse flower. The flowering plant has the largest unbranched inflorescence in the world, which includes the head, stem, and stalks of the flower and can be up to 3 meters high. Its blooming is rare and unpredictable. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has declared a demographic national emergency amid growing concerns about his country's record-low birth rate. Yoon vowed to activate a pan-government response system until the low birth rate issue is overcome. He outlined 3 main areas, focusing on balancing work and life, providing public childcare service, and offering preference to purchase houses. The Ministry of Demographic Strategy and Planning will also be established to draw up policies on low birth, an aged society, and immigration. South Korea's fertility rate reached a record low of 0.72 last year. The government has tried various birth incentives over the past decades, but high housing prices and education costs, as well as long working hours, have made young people reluctant to have children. Hong Kong's unemployment rate for the March to May period stood unchanged at 3%. A further 2,500 people lost their jobs, bringing the total number of unemployed residents to 116,200. The latest underemployment rate was 1.2%. Secretary for Labor and Welfare Chris Soon said the labor market should stay tight in the near term alongside the continued economic growth. A group dedicated to empowering ethnic minority has unveiled a list of non-Chinese talent in Hong Kong. The list aims to facilitate the inclusion of more ethnic minority voices in government advisory and statutory bodies.
In the Zubin Foundation's Diversity List 2024, 21 ethnic minority representatives were handpicked for their contributions to the city. Over the years, the group nominated more than 120 candidates to the government's advisory and statutory bodies. So far, 73 such positions were held by 33 candidates from the Diversity List.
Their wide-ranging talent, energy, and innovation enrich us all.
One representative is ethnic Pakistani author Sadia, who hopes to use her voice for patient advocacy work in her home city, that is Hong Kong.
Hong Kong is my home, and I really hope to see Hong Kong flourish and grow, especially not only for ethnic minorities, but also to how to promote disability understanding, share my experiences within the hospital system.
Another Hong Kong native is solicitor Sajan Deep, who is of Indian descent.
I think it's important for people to be active in government roles, and even if that's in a minor way through a statutory board or a government advisory committee, there's a lot of perspective that people from ethnic minorities can offer.
The Zubin Foundation said they will continue discussions with the government to encourage them to include more diverse voices into their advisory and statutory bodies. It aims to have 100 such bodies with ethnic minority backgrounds in Hong Kong over the next 5 years.
Don't bring them on because they're ethnic minorities. Bring them on because they're brilliant. They're lawyers and they're doctors and they're finance people and NGO leaders. But they also bring this additional benefit of having international perspectives and networks and being part of this different Hong Kong community.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.